Tonight on the Donlon Report, LA County remasking. People are not happy. Is our country heading in the wrong direction in the fight against COVID-19? We're live on the ground from the Golden State. A federal judge in Texas strikes down DACA, blocking new applicants. What that ruling means for undocumented migrants in the U.S. moving forward. The NFL season is around the corner, but with COVID cases on the rise, which teams might get sacked with team vaccination rates below 50%? And I'll speak with a former player about potential changes the league will make regarding social justice. Will players have a larger voice on the field? The Donlon Report starts right now. Good evening. Happy Friday. Here we go again. A month after California celebrated its grand reopening, COVID is on a comeback, and so are mask mandates in Los Angeles County. Just when it looked like things were getting back to normal, the Delta variant is spreading like a California wildfire. And starting tomorrow, people living in the most populous county in the country will have to wear masks indoors again, even if they're vaccinated. Just under 49% of the country is vaccinated at this point. 61% of Californians, just under 43% fully vaccinated in Texas. And this is probably the vaccine ceiling. I mean, it seems pretty safe to assume that anyone who wanted this shot has already gotten it at this point. If you're confused, join the club. Wasn't the vaccine supposed to change this? No doubt, and it has. The number of cases and deaths have been falling dramatically, but as we know, the vaccine has become the latest cultural divide, which leads to this headline in the LA Times. With new rules, LA County is asking the vaccinated to help the unvaccinated. So now those of us who got the vaccine to avoid the virus primarily, but also so we could all stop wearing masks, now those folks have to mask up again in LA County to protect those who didn't get the vaccine. If you got the shot, haven't you done your part? A lot of people asking that tonight. But the truth is, it's not bulletproof. There's a chance you can still get the virus. It just won't be as serious or deadly. But all these months later, there are still a lot of questions and confusion. Will the mask mandate keep people from going out there? What impact will it have on the workplace? What about going out to eat? Never really understood that whole thing. You have to wear the mask while you walk through the restaurant, but you can take it off while you're eating or drinking. So what about the plexiglass? Does that go back up too? Unfortunately, we can probably expect more scenes like this. People getting into arguments over mask mandates. One thing is clear, the people who are getting sick and dying didn't get the vaccine. Here's the breakdown just in LA County alone. Over the last 6 months, roughly, the unvaccinated account for 99.6% of LA County's coronavirus cases and 99.8% of deaths. CDC Director Rochelle Walensky talked about that during the White House press briefing this morning.
There is a clear message that is coming through. This is becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated. We are seeing outbreaks of cases in parts of the country that have low vaccination coverage because unvaccinated people are at risk. And communities that are fully vaccinated are generally faring well.
So the political debate rages on, along with the debate over health recommendations. Meantime, the virus mutates and marches on. And more than a year later, after taking 2 steps forward, it looks like we're starting to take a step back. Joining me now on the ground in L.A., NewsNation's Nancy Lee. Nancy?
And Joe, the return of the indoor mask mandate generating all kinds of reaction here in LA County. There is understanding, but there's also confusion and anger. As of now, there are just over 30 more hours of being able to head into public places in LA County without a mask on. The mandate kicks back in for 10 million residents at midnight tomorrow night. While the county's vaccination rate of over 60% is among the country's highest, it is short of herd immunity. So like everywhere else, the Delta variant has been spreading fast here, pushing the COVID positivity rate up by 700%. The return to masking, though, has many sounding off.
I think it's ridiculous. I think it's absurd. And I think it negates why there has been a mandate to get vaccinated. There are plenty of people out here who didn't want to necessarily get vaccinated and did it for the greater good.
If you're vaccinated and you're telling me I don't have to wear the mask, and now I'm vaccinated and I have to wear the mask, it's really 101, what do I do?
I'm fine with it. I think, I've chosen to got vaccinated, but if other people haven't, or I do it just to protect my kids, then I'm okay with it.
Health officials in quite a few communities, including Las Vegas, are now again recommending that people mask up again inside. But LA County is the first to make it a mandate again. And Joe, just a short time ago, a statement from the LA County Sheriff, Alex Villanueva, he announced in part, quote, his underfunded, defunded department would not actively enforce the mandate. So a lot of maneuvering out here today, Joe.
Sounds like it. Nancy Liu, live for us in California tonight. Thank you very much. We want to talk more about this. Joining me, the host of the Mo Kelly Show and LA resident Morris Kelly. So, Mo, it's great to see you. Good to have you as well. What's the word on the street? What are you hearing from your listeners?
Well, people are very angry. People are very upset, and they have a right to be upset. I'm vaccinated and I'm angry. We may be angry for different reasons. There are vaccinated people who are angry because we thought that we were past this. There are unvaccinated people who were never for the mask, weren't for the vaccine, and now they're continuing on that same path. And now there's going to be even more frustration. There was resistance before, and there's definitely going to be resistance now. We heard what Sheriff Alex Villanueva said, so we know there's not going to be any enforcement, which says to me that businesses most likely are not going to comply, and there's going to be more and more frustration and, more importantly, confusion. This has nothing to do with also what LAUSD is doing as kids are coming back to school, right, and they've already mandated masks there. So masks will be everywhere come Saturday night.
What are you hearing from the unvaccinated, Mo? Because they're the ones who are getting sick and dying. Isn't this on them, essentially? I mean, they're the ones facing the consequences, and they are, as we showed in the statistics.
Yes, you're making sense, but the unvaccinated are not of the opinion that they are in danger. And unless COVID is touching them personally, from what I'm hearing from my listeners, from my readers, they are reluctant to either to change or even reconsider their stance on vaccination. And yes, it's a free country, but there are consequences to our lifestyle decisions, our dietary decisions. This is just another one. And unfortunately, the unvaccinated are not willing to reconsider their choice.
What are they telling you about why they won't get it, Mo? Because it sounds selfish, and I've heard people say this. Look, I'm vaccinated. Why should I care if someone else is? It's up to them.
What I hear is, well, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to worry. And I try to respond to that person, will say that you are unvaccinated. You are more potentially a carrier and also a shredder of the virus to other people who may have comorbidities. And not only that, to the unvaccinated, the longer we go in this pandemic, and we're not out of it yet, the more likely that this virus will mutate, and we will come up against a variant which will break through our existing vaccines. And then we're back to square one.
Right. What are you hearing politically about this, Mo? Because as we know, Governor Newsom there is up against a recall coming up soon in September. COVID was one of the reasons, the response that led off this recall. Does this step backwards hurt him politically, do you think?
No, I expect Governor Newsom to be very hands-off and allow different municipalities like Los Angeles County or Huntington Beach or Kern County, the individual counties, to make the decisions for themselves. If you listen to the anger right now, it's not at Governor Newsom because it didn't come from him. This is coming from the LA County Department of Public Health. And so it's looked upon in that lens, through that lens. I don't expect Governor Newsom to do anything which is going to harm him politically between now and September. The momentum is working in his direction, in the sense of he likely will survive the recall regardless of how people feel about it. But he's not going to do anything politically to generate negative momentum against him between now and September 14th.
All right. Host of the Mo Kelly Show and LA resident Morris O'Kelly. Mo, it's great to see you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Joe.
Staying on the topic of the coronavirus, we have a bit more here. A tough week it has been for American sports. Washington Wizards star Bradley Beal will not be joining Team USA in the Tokyo Olympics. He's been sidelined by health and safety protocols put in place for COVID-19. Beal out. In Major League Baseball, the New York Yankees and Boston Red Sox game was postponed yesterday after 6 of the Yankees players entered the COVID-19 protocol, including all-star outfielder Aaron Judge. This is the second time this season that the Yankees have been sidelined with these COVID issues. And an interesting note here, the GM of the team says most, but not all, who tested positive were vaccinated, and 85% of the team, the New York Yankees that is vaccinated. In the NFL, meantime, 2 teams, the Indianapolis Colts and the Washington football team, have vaccination rates less than 50%. Training camp for the NFL begins in less than 2 weeks. The Pittsburgh Steelers, Miami Dolphins, Carolina Panthers, and Denver Broncos have the highest vaccination rates in the NFL, with 13 teams reaching at least 85% vaccination rate. We're going to have much more on the NFL coming up. I'll speak with a former NFL player on COVID and also the league's evolving support for social justice. And we do have some breaking news we want to bring you right now. A Texas judge rules DACA unconstitutional. What does that mean for dreamers already in the country? More on that ahead. Pharmaceutical companies are paying out huge amounts for their role in the opioid epidemic, but overdoses continue to rise, hitting record highs. We'll talk with a doctor about that crisis coming up. Plus, a large percentage of Baltimore high schoolers are failing their classes. Is the district distance learning? What's its default here? And why are America's youth falling behind? Don't forget, you can follow us on social media at The Donlon Report on Twitter. The program that's allowed hundreds of thousands of dreamers, as they're called, to be in the U.S. is illegal. A federal judge ruled today President Barack Obama exceeded his authority in creating the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program in 2012. What does this mean now for some 700,000 undocumented young adults? Criminal defense attorney Randy Zellin joins us with more on this. So, Randy, the important point here is the fact that these are new applicants we're talking about, correct?
That's correct. It's a great point, and it's an important point to really be focused in on, which is the judge's ruling does not impact right now pending applications. What the judge did was the judge exercised his authority to say, I'm going to stay the implementation of my ruling with regard to any pending applications, and my ruling right now only impacts new applications.
So why wouldn't that ruling cover all of them, I guess, is the question. What does it mean for those who already have their permit in process?
I think it was the judge's way of being Solomon-like, whether you agree or you disagree with the judge's ruling. I think the judge recognized that his ruling would be unfair to those 650,000 or 700,000 applicants right now who just got completely blindsided. And I think in the exercise of discretion and I think good judgment, the judge said, okay, pending applications, my ruling doesn't affect you right now. Let's see which way the wind takes us. My ruling only impacts new applications.
Let's get everyone up to date on where this stands, Randy, because there's a lot going on. I know former President Trump tried to end DACA in 2017 and went to the Supreme Court. How does all of that impact this case here?
Well, I think this judge aptly, and again, whether you agree or you disagree with the ruling, the judge did try to ground the decision in looking to the Supreme Court, because apparently Justice Thomas and there may have been other dissenters who basically agreed and questioned the authority with regard to DACA. And certainly this judge is now saying that the executive branch went way too far, overstepped the boundaries that are created by Congress. We learned going back to grade school, Congress makes the laws, the executive branch interprets, the executive branch enforces the laws, and the judiciary interprets the laws. And there is something called the Administrative Procedure Act, which provides the regulations and provides the framework for agencies to create regulations.
Yeah, well, as we know, Congress has had a hard time dealing with this, and it's been stalled in Congress for quite some time. What happens to this case now? Is this headed for the Supreme Court, do you think, as well?
It's certainly headed for the Supreme Court, but I think it's also a reminder to Congress that Congress really needs to try to stop making everything a political issue. I think we can all agree right now that it's about 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I suspect these days Congress would manage to fight over that. But there is certainly going to be a call upon Congress to break this tie, to resolve this impasse, and one way or the other determine what's going to happen to what we call the dreamers.
Yeah, well, speaking of the time, Randy Zellen, we called you late when this news broke, and I know you're busy on a Friday night. We appreciate you making some time for us.
Never too busy for you. It's always a privilege to be on.
Thank you, Randy. Take care.
Thank you.
The NFL season is around the corner, but with COVID cases on the rise, which teams might get sacked? We'll speak with a former player ahead.
A lot of snacks are packed with air, but not Planters nuts. Our dry roasted peanuts have an incredible ratio of size to substance. A delicious, salty, crunchy ratio. Planters, a nut above.
There's an America we build and one we explore. One that's been paved and one that's forever wild. But freedom means you don't have to choose just one adventure. You get both. Introducing the wildly civilized, all-new, 3-row Jeep Grand Cherokee L.
Here's my new dress. What's that? Oh, Damp Rid.
Damp Rid? Damp Rid. It gets rid of musty odors.
How? Well, Damp Rid attracts and traps excess moisture,
eliminating the source of musty odors.
Mustiness, gone.
Damp Rid.
At Fisher Investments, our clients know we have their backs.
How do your clients know that?
Because as a fiduciary, it's our responsibility to always put clients first.
So you do it because you have to?
No, we do it because it's the right thing to do. We help clients enjoy a comfortable retirement.
Sounds like a big responsibility.
One that we don't take lightly. It's why our fees are structured so we do better when our clients do better. Fisher Investments is clearly different.
What's on the horizon? The answers lie beyond the roads we know. We recognize that energy demand is growing and the world needs lower carbon solutions to keep up. At Chevron, we're working to find new ways forward, like through our venture capital group, backing technologies like electric vehicle charging, carbon capture, and even nuclear fusion. We may not know just what lies ahead, but it's only human to search for it.
Okay, everyone, our mission is to provide complete balanced nutrition for strength and energy.
Ensure, with 27 vitamins and minerals. Now introducing Ensure Complete, with 30 grams of protein.
At Finger Hut, we don't define you by your credit score. We celebrate you being you. So we offer low monthly payments on the stuff you need, things you love, and brands you trust. As you build your credit history with a Finger Hut credit account. If you're looking for the latest electronics, kitchen essentials, clothes, toys, and more, you'll find it all at Finger Hut. You do you, and we'll help build your credit at fingerhut.com.
Finger Hut credit accounts are issued by WebBank, member FDIC.
Tonight on Banfield, Abolish the Police 101.
We need our police. This is a dumb idea.
The controversial new college class. Tonight on Banfield.
There's one news network that's delivering unbiased, fact-based news every day.
That network is NewsNation. Log on to newsnationnow.com. Click on Channel Finder and enter your zip code to find your cable provider or streaming service that carries NewsNation.
Then just sit back and watch.
NewsNation.
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 That was Vanessa Williams singing Lift Every Voice on the PBS July 4th holiday broadcast. That song also referred to as the Black National Anthem. The NFL announcing now that song will be played before the Star-Spangled Banner at the league's flagship games, including the season opener. But as with the national anthem itself, it comes with some controversy. Let's ask former NFL player Tank Johnson and NFL agent Tiffany Porter. Tank was a defensive tackle who played for the Bears, the Cowboys, and the Bengals. Tank, let's start with you. What does it mean to you? How important would it be to you to have this song played if you were still in the game?
Personally, if I was still in the game, I would rather just hear the regular, normal national anthem and keep it going. But since I left the game, with the social justice endeavors and everybody kind of raising their consciousness. I think it's something that, the NFL chose to do so that they can, I guess they can continue to service their players and continue to make them feel like they're being heard. So I think the Black National Anthem, is that what they're calling it? I think it's just a way for the NFL to let their players know that they hear them and they're trying to do more and more every year.
Tiffany, they did this last year for select games, just like they're doing this year. Why is it an issue now?
I don't know why it would be an issue. I think it's a phenomenal thing to do, especially when more than half of the league this song would represent. I don't think it should be an issue to include this. It should have been included a long time ago. And I think they're making great strides with doing this to push the agenda of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah. When we think of the anthem, I think most of us anyway go right to the Whitney Houston 1991 Super Bowl version. It brought everyone together. It was a time when we were early on in the Iraq War, but now this has become almost divisive. How, Tank, would you have handled this if you were playing now? Would you have taken a knee?
As far as taking a knee, no. I mean, I for one, believe that the national anthem, it's a sacred time in a game. It's not really a time for any type of divisiveness. It's not about, black, white. It's not about any of that. For me, when I play, when the national anthem came on, like, that's when you get the chills. That's when the planes fly over. That's when you look around and you see all the different races right next to each other in the stadium. And that's what it's really all about, and you look around and you see just kind of the melting pot that is America right in front of you. So kneeling, I don't think I would have knelt. I just think that I hold that time too sacred in the bigger picture.
Yeah, Tiffany, I think the anthem is considered by a lot of people at least supposed to be a song that represents everyone, but clearly some feel it doesn't, understandably. Critics, though, are now saying with this playing of the Black National Anthem, how many more anthems do we need?
Well, that's always going to be a slippery slope, of course. But I believe that the kneel is symbolic of what the players are standing for. They have a platform. Why not use it? I believe that this is a time such as this to use that platform and not ignore what's going on and also what's going on in the league. We forget about that there's some racism or alleged racism within the league. So these things are just standing up for what they believe in. The players are standing up for what they believe in. And I don't believe there's anything wrong with kneeling.
Tank, sports has always been a place for folks to escape. It sounds to me like you think maybe these political debates hurt sports. Do you think it costs the league fans?
Well, I think in the beginning, I think there's people who are turned off by it, about all the riding in the end zones and kind of like, it was just kind of like being bombarded with social justice things. And like you said, when you're playing sports, you really just kind of want to disconnect and see a game. And I do think initially they probably did rub some people the wrong way, but I think they've smoothed it out kind of over the course of time. I don't think you can make anyone get it perfectly right the first time, as it's such a sensitive topic. But I think kind of over the time, the NFL has brought in the right people with Rock Nation, Jay-Z. I think Commissioner Goodell has kind of brought in the people who at least can get everything pointed in the right direction and make everybody happy, at once.
Right. Let's hit COVID while I have you both. And Tiffany, we'll start with you. Two teams have fewer than 50% of their players vaccinated, the Colts and Washington. Do you worry that this is going to be an issue this year? Do your players you represent think there may be more postponed games as a result of this?
Of course, because we don't know with this virus where it's going to go, how many mutations. And if you are quarantining a certain group, who's to say that once they get back, it doesn't just start the cycle again? So I know that players are very cautious about the coronavirus and what the effects will be regarding the virus.
Right. Tank, do you think this would be an issue in your locker room if you knew that fewer than 50% of your teammates were vaccinated?
Well, I think it's going to be tough. I think that they're basically saying that, you know, if you're vaccinated, you're going to live one lifestyle. And if you're not, you're going to live another. And I don't think a season can go on like that, because at some point those things are going to overlap and intertwine. And I don't think that NFL thought that through, because at the end of the day, you can't have two different scenarios going down the same train track. It's just not going to work.
Great insight and perspective from Tank Johnson, former NFL player, and Tiffany Porter, NFL agent. Thank you both. Have a great weekend.
Thanks.
Thank you.
More than 1 million migrants have crossed the southern border this fiscal year. Is there a solution for the surge? We'll talk with a retired special agent who was just on the border. Plus, the opioid death toll rising and at a faster rate than ever before. What's behind these overdoses and how do we stop them? We'll discuss ahead. A milestone in the ongoing border crisis, the CBP encountered more than 188,000 migrants at the southern border last month. That brings the total number of encounters for fiscal year 2021 to more than 1 million. That's more than all of 2020 and 2018 combined. I want to bring on retired U.S. Special Agent Victor Avila to give us more on this. He was just at the border last week and saw the crisis firsthand. So, Victor, we've surpassed 1 million encounters. Put that into perspective. You noticed, I'm sure, that we left 2019 out because that was the last big surge year. But how does this all compare?
It doesn't compare at all, Joe. This is a surge and basically an invasion that we're seeing firsthand. These numbers that you're alluding to are astronomical compared to all previous years, going back 20 years, as a matter of fact. And they're feeling it. I was just in Valverde County, Del Rio, Texas, Kenny County, right next door. And the local sheriffs, I was briefed by them, and they're overwhelmed, even with the presence of the large amount of state police, not just from Texas troopers, but troopers from Ohio, Florida, and other states in Texas trying to help. They're overwhelmed with the large number of human smuggling cases, the large number of stash houses. It is something that is beyond control at this point.
Well, it's interesting to get a read on what's happening with the states that have sent law enforcement officers to the border. That's the first we've heard about how this is working. You do make trips to the border often, and as a retired agent, I'm wondering what you look for and what you found on this most recent trip.
Well, I specifically asked the Valverde County the sheriff that question. I was there 6 weeks ago, and I said, Sheriff, from the last time that I was here to today, which was a couple of days ago, what was the biggest impact that you've seen, or has it slowed down at all? And the answer was adamantly, it's gotten worse, and the crime is what was increased. The smuggling, the pursuits of the human smuggling ventures, because now there's so many law enforcement around the area that these individuals that are not turning themselves into Border Patrol are being detected by the state police and even Border Patrol themselves at times. And a lot of them are eluding stoppage or arrest and failing to yield. And we're seeing a large number of car crashes, some of the illegal aliens being killed in some of these accidents. We're seeing the ranchers along the border be overwhelmed with illegal aliens coming into their ranches, destroying their property, burglarizing them, sometimes in other cases, defecating and doing other horrific things in their property.
Hey, the other thing we're seeing the numbers increase on a lot, Victor, are drug seizures. In June, almost 505,000 pounds of drugs so far this year anyway. And fentanyl is really the biggest concern here.
Absolutely, Joe. This is the other part that sometimes a lot of people don't understand, that because the border is wide open, not just for the human smuggling and the people turning themselves in, but exactly that, the drug trafficking. And now that the state highways, most of them are not being dealt with by our state police because they have been sent down to the border. The cartels have a free ride through Texas to the rest of the country to distribute the poison of fentanyl and methamphetamine. And the seizures that you allude to are the ones that we know about. And that great number only tells me in my career, the experience that I have is that there's a lot more getting out there.
Sure. Retired U.S. Special Agent Victor Avila, thank you for the update. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
We're going to use that as well to pivot to a similar issue, and that is the fallout from what we were just talking about. The biggest rise in a single year ever recorded in the U.S., and this is a grim statistic. More than 93,000 people in the U.S. died last year from drug overdoses. according to preliminary data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. But that's not all. It was also a record year for total overdose deaths in a single year, as well as most deaths from opioids, stimulants like meth, and synthetic opioids like fentanyl. Dr. Jeff Myers joins us now. He's president of Summit Ministries and also the host of the Dr. Jeff Show. So, doctor, tell us what's behind most of these deaths. Is it synthetic opioids?
It is mostly this, well, it's often the synthetic opioids, but what's really behind it is a mental health crisis, especially when it comes to young adults. And those are the ones I focus on at Summit Ministries. I'm working with young people, mainly between the ages of 16 and 25. And there's been a 320% increase in fatal overdoses through the COVID period. And what happens, and I've got family members who work in this field as well as the work that I do with young adults, what happens is that they don't have anybody to talk to, they don't have the ability to travel, they're locked down, they can't get treatment, they don't have money, they've lost their job, so they have no health insurance. Everything about our country's reaction to COVID has made this problem significantly worse.
Yeah, the pandemic has really been sort of a perfect storm for this whole thing. It's sad as well when you think about it. It's heartbreaking. These families who are losing children, especially in the age range that you're talking about, some of them may have seen this coming, others certainly didn't, but at the end, they couldn't help. And I think a lot of people are really struggling with the guilt of this, and there's not much they feel like they either could do or did in the end.
I think you're right. And it's hard to reach the heart and mind of a child. Anyone who's had a teenager knows how difficult that can be. But parents need to be prepared to seek medical treatment for their kids if they need to. And remember, mental health is a health issue. Young adults who are not able to go to school sometimes spiral into anxiety and depression. We've seen statistics in some areas, up to 80 to 90% of young people struggling with anxiety and depression because they're all by themselves. They can't go to school. They can't get their education. Their future seems uncertain to them.
Hey, Doc, before you go, is there a message that you've heard from people who've survived an overdose that you can leave us with tonight? Maybe a message of hope or some advice or suggestion for them?
Well, I think the message of hope for people who've experienced an overdose is that you can get help. There are people who want to help you. Nobody blames you for this. They want you to get well. And that's a message that we have got to get across in this time.
A great note to end on as well. Dr. Jeff Myers, host of the Dr. Jeff Show and president of Summit Ministries. You're doing great work. Keep it up. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Also, an unbelievable amount of Baltimore students are failing high school. So is the student failing school, or is the school failing the student? We'll discuss with a Baltimore native next. Police in L.A. shooting and killing a man on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, just a block and a half from where the Oscars ceremony happens. A man pulls what appears to be a handgun on police. Officers in turn drew their weapons and shot the man. He died at a hospital. That's a body cam image there. Another woman was hurt in that incident. No officers injured, but upon investigation, police discovered the man's gun was not real. It was, as they put it, a replica. Meantime, crime, a front burner issue for swing voters, according to a recent focus group. 8 out of 11 swing voters in the study, which was not a formal poll, saying neither major political party seems to be taking crime seriously. This while homicide rates are rising in a number of cities across the country this year, including Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Miami, and New York. In Philadelphia, murders are up a third. Leland Vittert, host of NewsNation's On Balance, joins us now. Murders up in a lot of cities, and so is skepticism among swing voters. First of all, remind us what a swing voter is and what this means.
A swing voter is somebody who votes for one party sometimes, the other party the other time. Remember, back in 2020, President Trump tried to make this an issue. It was an issue for Republicans. Now it's an issue for swing voters. That is the key difference of what we're learning. This was Axios, one of the foremost news organizations in the country right now. They did a focus group on this. What it's saying is that people are now agreeing that crime is an issue, but they don't trust either party on the issue of crime to keep them safe. This does open the potential for something like an Eric Adams, his model in New York, not far to the left, somewhere in the middle. This is what came out of this group. Partisan finger pointing on crime resembles two kids arguing in the back seat of a car. Neither side persuasively casts blame. And that's from one member of the focus group. talking there about what they heard. This is the issue to point out. How does this play now in the next year going into 2022?
Yeah, and that's going to be the question, because I think we're already seeing it, as you point out, in New York, where Curtis Lewa wins the Republican nomination. Of course, the founder of the Guardian Angels, and Eric Adams, a former police captain in New York, winning on the D side.
And very differently, Eric Adams in New York talked not about defunding the police, as a number of his opponents in the Democratic primary did. Former police captain, he said the police may have problems, but we need them to solve the crime problems in New York. People responded to that because in New York they are feeling the issue of crime. The question is going to be, do suburban swing voters, not inside the cities that you talked about with raising crime rates, do they start feeling that effects, and do they start voting on that issue? They didn't vote on it in 2020.
All right, Leland, thanks. Get your rest, because you have a big day coming up on Monday. We'll tell you about it.
Ready for the hazing.
Yeah, that's when the new program On Balance premieres this Monday, right after our show, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, here on NewsNation. Enjoy the weekend.
See you then.
We're going to pivot now. No secret that children suffered during the pandemic, especially when it comes to their education. Most kids had to take their classes on Zoom, using their computers from home, as we know. But shocking numbers from the Baltimore City School District show just how severely this impacted some students. According to Project Baltimore, a whopping 41% of high school students in the city earned a GPA of 1.0 or less. That's a D average. In a statement, Baltimore City Schools said the COVID-19 pandemic created significant disruptions to student learning. And starting this summer and beyond, City Schools is providing students with a variety of opportunities to acquire the unfinished learning they lost. But some say the district should raise their standards. Among them, Giovanni Patterson. He ran for Baltimore City Council in 2020. Giovanni, this is really stunning. When we saw these numbers, I mean, we expected kids to struggle. We knew they'd have to catch up, but how in the world does this happen? 41% failing.
Well, what we're seeing in Baltimore is just, another excuse after excuse. Our schools were failing even before this. And honestly, it's quite surprising they actually released these numbers. When I heard them, when I saw them, they were very, very, very disheartening because we have job opportunities within Baltimore City. We have finance, we have healthcare, and people come to college right here in Baltimore City. But our own education system is not preparing our students for these opportunities that exist ahead.
This was identified, as I read today, Giovanni, in summer of last year. And at that point, 24% were below the 1-point GPA. But then after that, it almost doubled.
Yeah, so there were some challenges that, that I do believe the school system faced. There were kids just not attending school. Internet access became a problem. But what we're seeing is a combination of issues within Baltimore City government, the cronyism, the protectionism that these politicians play, and it's really harming our future. It's really harming and damaging the kids that that are coming up in the next generation.
What happens to these kids? Are they held back? I saw today in an article where there was a senior who's going to be moved back to 9th grade.
Well, look, the school system actually can only hold a child back twice in their entire education career. So they can only hold them back once within the K through 8, and then once more within the 9th through 12. So even before this, kids were even being passed along. So this isn't anything new. This pandemic year provides simply just an excuse. So we're just seeing this a repeat cycle with an excuse this year. Well, I know people that have graduated from Baltimore City schools, top of their class, and then when they get to college, they have to take remedial courses. That's the level of our education system that's been going on for years and years. This is absolutely nothing new.
Well, it's staggering. Again, when you see how many of these kids are falling through the cracks, it makes you wonder, as some have, is the school the one that's failing here, or the student really? What kind of changes are people demanding there?
Well, we have to look at, one, how the school board is set up. We have a completely appointed system. That means the mayor appoints everybody on the school board, and then the school board appoints the school CEO. So when it comes to the public voicing their concerns, the school board can hear them, but don't have to take any actions at all. So we actually need an elected school board. The other thing we need to do is a forensic audit on where every dollar goes. We spend about $16,000 per child, and the average private school in Baltimore City is about $10,000. So we spend more than the average private school average private school in the city. And the private school education is much better. They've been going to school during the pandemic and haven't lost that year. So the money needs to follow the child versus getting stuck in the administration. We have administrators making $100,000. Our school CEO makes $300,000. To put that in perspective, the $300,000. Our president of the United States makes $400,000 a year. $400,000 a year for a country of 320 million. Our school CEO makes $330,000 for a school system of 82,000 kids that's shrinking and failing.
Former Baltimore City Council candidate Giovanni Patterson, thanks for weighing in on this. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
Can Americans making minimum wage afford to live anywhere? It's a serious question. What a new study says about the average cost of living, and it's not good news. Don't forget you can follow us on social media at The Donlon Report on Twitter. Costs are rising across the board for Americans on everything from food and gas to cars and housing. According to a new report, Americans making minimum wage can't even afford housing, period. The study by the National Low-Income Housing Coalition showed that a minimum wage worker can afford a one-bedroom rental in only 7% of U.S. counties. Nationwide, the federal minimum wage is $7.25. For more on this, I want to welcome in Bill Bronchick, real estate investing mentor and host of LegalWiz.com. So, Bill, this report is really sad and troubling, and it doesn't look like housing prices are going to go down anytime soon, if they're not even going to go higher. So what happens next?
What we're going to see is what people do in Europe, people doubling and tripling up with their families in houses. That's the only solution because we have a shortage of affordable rental housing in this country simply because it is not feasible for a developer to build low-income housing without subsidies from the government.
Well, speaking of which, the COVID benefits, at least some of them anyway, set to expire this month, and they've been a huge help for a lot of people who've lost their jobs during the pandemic. So what kind of impact will you see that having on the housing market down the road once these benefits stop?
Well, we're going to see a lot of evictions for people who were not paying. Some people were not paying because they couldn't. They weren't working. Some people were not paying because, well, if they're not paying, I'm not paying, that kind of mentality. And so hopefully those people start paying or work out a payment plan with their landlord, like many landlords have been doing over the last year or so. The other problem is it's because of the eviction moratoriums, right. It's driven a lot of landlords out of the business. They're selling their properties. So that creates even a bigger shortage of rental housing, and that just drives rents even higher.
What is the latest on those eviction moratoriums? I saw today where Chicago's, I think, going to remove theirs August 31st. What else can you tell us about that?
Well, the CDC's moratorium, which is the federal one, is going to end at the end of this month, but every city can have their own, or state can have their own moratoriums that could be longer or shorter, depending on where you live.
So some of these forbearance things as well have been interesting, I guess. And how does that work? Because some folks who've gotten rental forbearance or even on their mortgage, it isn't forgiven. They still have to pay it, correct?
Correct. The tenants who were not being evicted because of the moratorium, they're not absolved of their obligation to pay the rent. There's just a moratorium on the ability of the landlord to evict. So they're still going to owe the money. And in the same way, people who had deferments under their mortgages still have to pay the mortgage payments up when it's all over.
Yeah, who gets left in the end holding the bag, if you will? Because in many cases, the renters couldn't afford to pay the rent. The owner of the home then, as a result, maybe couldn't afford to pay the mortgage. And in the end, the bank wasn't getting paid either.
Exactly. It's a domino effect. And the landlords who can stay in business are going to take a big hit for the non-payments of the tenants for over the last year. Some of them couldn't afford to pay their mortgages or were on deferments, and it's going to come due and they're going to get foreclosed.
Where are people moving around the country, the fastest growing markets that you're seeing right now?
South and west.
Okay, like just generally or cities in particular?
Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, South, West, Utah, Colorado, Arizona. And they're moving out of the big cities. They're moving out of the Northeast. They're moving out of the Rust Belt.
And where do you get your most bang for the buck?
Most bang for your buck as a renter or as a buyer?
Well, either.
Well, as a renter, you got to get out of the big cities. Whenever you're in the close to the downtown areas where most people want to be, that's where the rents are the highest. So in suburban areas around the cheaper cities in the middle of the country, you're going to get your best bang for your buck.
All right, Bill Bronchick, real estate investing mentor and host of LegalWiz.com. Thanks, Bill. Have a good weekend.
Pleasure. You too.
Now to our bite of the night. Facebook has added a new element to its messaging software. Messenger will now allow you to communicate not only through emojis, but through sound emojis as well. For example, when you send a clapping emoji, you'll hear this. Or when you send a laughing emoji, you hear this. There are also drum rolls, evil laughs, and crickets as well, just in case you have any comedians you're messaging. Still my favorite app, I think. That's our time for tonight. Have a good night and a great weekend. Rob's next with Prime.